Okay, so the fourth and final bright line is quantities. In other words, we need to bound our quantities of food. Otherwise, in our 3 meals a day, with no sugar and no flour, our brain will trick us into eating more food than we need at those 3 meals, and we will not get down into a right-sized body. And for those of us who are really high on the susceptibility scale, also there's no freedom there because it can get really squirrely wanting to eat more and more food at mealtime. So the application or the manifestation of this bright line for quantities that I am a big fan of is weighing food with a digital food scale. And I've already asked you to buy a digital food scale, so you can certainly try it out. Now, I would say that the vast majority of people who do bright line eating stick with weighing their food, and there's a reason for that, which is that it works. And there's another reason for that, which is it produces so much freedom. It really does. It's like that little train on the train tracks just zooming along, just going, oh, I feel so free. It is amazing to put your food on the scale and know that you got the right amount. And what it does is it silences the saboteur that tries to tell you you didn't get enough food. Because you're like, I just weighed it. I know that that's exactly how much food my body needs. So the thing about weighing our food is that we need to weigh it precisely. So what that means is that when you're weighing your oats in the morning, 1 ounce of oats is 1.0 on the digital food scale. It's not 0.9 or 7/8, and it's not 1 1/8 or 1.1. And there's a scientific reason for that. What we're trying to do is to automate our eating as much as possible. We're trying to make it just like brushing our teeth. Something that we do and accomplish every day the right way without ever having to think about it at all. And when you weigh your food precisely, it can become that automatic. This process starts to get taken over by the basal ganglia, which is the part of the brain that executes automatic behavior sequences. Now, if you're not weighing your food precisely, if you're letting 1.1 ounce of oats slide by on the scale, because of course that extra 1/10 of an ounce of oats isn't going to make you fat, I'm not here to tell you that it is, but it will keep your eating from becoming as automatic as you want, because then you have to activate the prefrontal cortex, which is the judging, deciding, rational part of your brain, to say, is that overage acceptable? Is it more or less than yesterday's overage? And it's sort of that deciding process in the brain that we don't want to come online. We want that part of the brain to not get involved at all, because that part of the brain also gets hijacked by parts of the brain that just want, they want to play the angle. So we want our food to be completely automatic. Now, this also means no bites, licks, or tastes, BLTs. Now, BLT is not a sandwich in Bright Line Eating land. BLT stands for bites, licks, and tastes. And we're talking about here, popping a piece of red pepper into your mouth off the cutting board as you're making your salad for dinner, that kind of thing. Tasting sauces, tasting soups. I know people like to season their food in the kitchen. I recommend that you do your best. Aim for under seasoning if possible, and then you can add more seasoning at the table when you're tasting it after it's weighed and measured. If you're making some kind of sauce or something, which we don't do a lot of sauces in Bright Line Eating anyway, but you can have someone else in your family taste it and let you know if it needs more, whatever. So this literally means no putting anything into your mouth until you've gotten to the table, sat down, taken a breath, your food is all weighed, and then you start to eat. I had a hard time with this when I was first learning to do Bright Line Eating, or when I was in the 12-step program for food addiction that was the precursor to this. I actually put Scotch tape over my mouth for a while. Not long. It just took 1 or 2 sessions in the kitchen with tape over my mouth to really get the sensory experience of, right, I'm not putting anything in my mouth right now. I'm not licking a spatula. I'm not, popping in a vegetable. I'm nothing. I'm just not eating until I actually get to the table. So that's the bright line for quantities. Now, this is how, as I said, the vast majority of people instantiate the bright line for quantities. But there is an alternative way. If you're low on the susceptibility scale and you're thinking, this is really overkill for me because my body really tells me how much food it needs and I don't need to weigh it, what I recommend is weigh your food a few times according to our food plan to get an eyeball sense, because it's probably way more vegetables than you're used to eating. But once you've gotten a sense of the proportions, from then on, you can adopt what we call a 1 plate of food rule. And that just means one plate of food, one moderate plate of food, no seconds. And that one plate of food rule can be the substitute for weighing and measuring your food. It still is bounding the quantity of food, right? One plate of food with no seconds is a boundary. Now, if you're higher on the susceptibility scale, I don't recommend that because it's not likely to lead to peace and freedom and success. And that's what I want you to have, peace and freedom and success. I'll just end this by saying I always find it funny and delightful when the people who are the most against weighing their food, like it just rankles them. And I relate to this because it rankled me. When I was first introduced to 12-step programs where people weighed their food, I was appalled and I didn't do it. I just refused. I'm not going to weigh my food. And years later, fatter than ever, I was back weighing my food. But so the people who are the most averse to the thought of weighing their food, they hate it the most. They end up writing emails in to me saying things like, Susan, if I had a fire happening in my house and I could only bring out one handful of things out of my burning house, I would bring my cat and my digital food scale. And I just love my scale so much now. It is the instrument for freedom for me. Like that first time I put my food on the scale, I felt so much peace. I can't even tell you. So if you're hating the thought of weighing your food, just give it a try. Give it a try. It can be amazing. And it is one of our best tools for getting happy, thin, and free and staying that way. So that's the fourth bright line, the fourth and final bright line, and that is quantities.